Welcome to the Jesus Show. Not that one.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Did you notice something different about this week's intro? Yeah, it wasn't me. It was my nephew, Cristiano. Me and Ali were hanging out with my cousin Danny and Janice and their kids. And when we got back home that night, they sent me a video of Cristiano doing the intro to the show. So I thought, why not share it with you guys? I think it's really cool. And it warmed my heart to see him do it. He's just adorable. So from now on, I think that might be the intro to the show. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm going to mess around with it. Use it a couple times, see how I like it. I mean, so far, I really enjoy it. But then I also thought, if you, as the viewer, as the listener, want to try doing the intro to the show, go ahead and record yourself doing it and send it over to the show. You can email that to TheJesusShowNTO at gmail.com. Go ahead and send it over. And if we like it, if you do a good job, I'll probably start using it as the show intro. Or I might switch them out. I might do it. I'll definitely put Cristiano on there. And then if anybody else submits their entry, then I'll use those as well. So this week, I have one of my really good friends who's a photographer. You heard that right, a photographer. So when I started the podcast, I told you it was going to be about soccer and comedy. Then I was thinking a couple days ago, why not have people that I want to have on? Not necessarily always soccer players and comedians. So I asked my good friend James Anthony to come on. And he agreed, so I sit down and I talk with him. But before I get into that, I want to share a little story. This past weekend, Jonah, Yami, Pat, Frankie, and Danny, and Betty all came to the house. And Jonah and Yami brought their kids. And we were just talking about stuff. And, a couple times I was like, oh, yeah, that fucking thing over there. And, fuck this and fuck that. I wasn't overly cursing, but I was just naturally cursing, like just in conversation. And then Allie kept having to remind me, hey, there's kids here. Oh, yeah. I'm not used to having kids around, so I don't necessarily watch what I say. Again, I don't overly curse, just when I'm talking. And I don't just say any and everything. Like, I know not everybody wants to talk about, buttholes and nipples and farting and stuff like that. I know that. So there's some things I won't say around people because, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable and weird and stuff, Just because I'm okay with talking about it doesn't mean everybody else is. So Allie kept having to remind me, hey, the kids are on. Oh, yeah. And it reminded me of a story of when my brother Greg brought Jason Bourne, well, his name's Jason, but I call him Jason Bourne, which I turn into Jason Bourne's identity. It's an inside joke. Anyways, when me and Allie were living in Hermosa Beach, my brother Greg brought Jason, his son, and they were visiting. I want to say Jason was maybe 2 years old, and they come over, and it was cool because we would go to the beach during the day, and then at night we'd walk either to Hermosa or the Manhattan Pier and we'd have dinner. And then usually at night, later in the evening, we would take Jason to go have ice cream. So it was just this fun time that they'd come and spend like 3-4 days at a time. And we just absolutely loved it. So one time Greg brought Jason and we're hanging out and, it's the middle of the day. We say, hey, why don't we go to the beach? And I think it was later? It was later in the day. We would go, we'd walk from pier to pier looking for seashells. So we'd, pick them up and we'd put them in a bag and Jason would take them. It was a lot of fun. So one time I'm walking with Jason, we're all walking, but I'm walking ahead with Jason. And Greg says, hey, do you have him? Are you watching him? And I said, yeah, of course I'm watching him. And I see a wave coming. And in my head, Jason's right next to me, right? He's 2 or 3. He's a tiny little guy. and I see this wave coming, and I went, oh, it gets closer, and I went, oh shit. So I run away from the wave. Yeah. Did you hear what I said? I ran away from the wave, leaving Jason right there by himself. Luckily, my brother, having the fatherly instincts that he does, ran over and grabbed Jason right before the water, God forbid, would have taken him away. So Greg grabs him, and he's like, "Hey, are you okay?" And Jason wasn't really paying it. Like, he didn't know what was going on. He just thought, "Oh, wee, Daddy's picking me up," and a wave almost, got me. And Greg looks at me and goes, "Hey, man, next time you do that shit, make sure you fucking take my son with you." And I went, "What? Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, I'm the adult. I have to look after the child," which makes sense, right? But that was my problem at the time. I didn't think, oh, there's a little kid. I have to make sure that it's okay. I shouldn't say it's okay. I should make sure that the baby, the kid, is okay. So I've definitely gotten better. But when it comes to cursing, sometimes, usually like the first day, if there's a little kid around, I'm free and fast with the cursing. And then it takes a couple times to like, hey, don't fucking do that. Like, well, I don't say it, but Allie tells me, hey, don't do that. And then I'm more mindful, and then I try not to do it around the kids because I don't want the kids to learn how to curse. So that was a little story I wanted to share with you guys. Now, into the interview. Today I have, like I said, my very good friend, James Anthony. He's an amazing photographer. If you guys go over to his Instagram, I'm going to pull it up real quick just to make sure I'm giving you the correct Instagram name. It's at I am James Anthony. Look him up on Instagram and look at his photos. Fucking amazing. We just talk about how we met and just his journey on why he became a photographer and some of the projects he's worked on. So I hope you enjoy it, and we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back with James Anthony. Everybody, we're back with my guest today, James Anthony. Hey, man, thanks for being on the podcast.
What's going on? What's going on? Thank you for having me.
So let's jump into it. How did we meet?
Look, taking a trip back down memory lane, we have a mutual friend, Tone Bell, who is actually someone that I attended college with, and brought me through the fraternity of Alpha Phi Alpha. So yeah, Tone Bell is my fraternity brother. Went to Savannah State, but he's also a successful actor and comedian out here in Los Angeles. And I think you guys had met a couple of years prior on, I'm not sure if it was a marketing gig or what that
Yeah,
was.
so I've known Tone for close to 20 years.
Okay,
So
okay.
so when we met,
So
how long have we known each other now? Like 4 or 5 years?
yeah, so what was that? Was that 2016?
You were
Yeah,
still living
so
in you were still living in Georgia.
yeah, I was still living in Georgia. So 2015, 2016, I believe. 2016. So yeah, that's about 5 years.
Okay,
And
yeah.
yeah, so
I
it's
remember I think it was on I believe it was on set. It was
yeah,
on one
it
of the
was.
sets. One of the shows he was on.
So actually, it wasn't on a show he was on. I think what happened was uh, Tone. I went with Tone to a show that Yvette was on,
Oh,
and she was
yes.
yeah, Odd Couple.
Now I
So we
remember.
were on set for Yvette show and the Odd Couple. Uh, and he introduced us all. That's when I first met Yvette. That's when I first met you. And then I think after that, you and I had like went back to the show just to kick it with Yvette, and it just was like-minded people kind of keep in contact. So it's like
Yeah.
if someone's cool with Tone, more than likely they will be cool too. So that's pretty much what it was. It was yeah, we were all on set during that time.
He told me you were a photographer, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
That's all he said. He didn't say, "Oh, he's a, really good photographer, like this is what he does." He just said, "Oh yeah, he's a photographer." And I thought, "Oh, okay, cool." And I didn't know what that entailed. And then I saw your stuff on Instagram and I went, "Holy shit, like this guy is legit."
Hey, appreciate it, man. And it's funny when you say that because you never realize. I think what it is you never realize what your uh, interpretation, like what other people's interpretation of your work is. Of course, you
Yeah.
always hope that it's held with in high regard. But I'm out here just having fun. I'm out here creating and chasing a dream. So it's in moments when people discover you and kind of relay how they feel about your work or you as a brand or person. That's when it's kind of like, oh, that's how you see it. All right, well, I appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
man, it's yeah, I like to put my best foot forward. I'll say that. So yeah, I appreciate
You
that.
can definitely see it. At least I can definitely see it when I see your work, when I see your photos. They're amazing. And um for those who want to check out your page, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, actually across all social media platforms, I am James Anthony. It's I am like you're introducing yourself, James Anthony, no punctuation, and that goes from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok to Clubhouse. So yeah, I try to keep it consistent.
Amazing, amazing photos.
Appreciate it. I appreciate it.
So let's bring it back a little bit. Where did you grow up?
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and well, I was born in actually, I was born in New York City. I was born in Queens, actually, raised in Brooklyn. Later moved to Maryland, the DMV area, PG County, uh, where I went to high school. I was on a TV show out there, and called
What was
Teen.
the TV show?
TV show was called Teen Summit. It was on
Oh,
BT. So
nice.
I was on all 4 years of high school, and during that time, I was also a character on a radio soap opera called What's the Deal, Yo, where I played an HIV positive 16-year-old. Um, yeah, so it really what it was about raising awareness for the youth, just how, stay away from drugs, stay away from, gangs and all that good stuff. So
Yeah.
I was doing those two projects simultaneously in Maryland, and then ended up getting a track and field scholarship to Savannah, Georgia, which is where I, continue to run, join a fraternity. I met Tone and a slew of other people that are, currently still in my life. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how I went from north to south. And then shortly after graduating Savannah, I moved to Atlanta, stayed there for a couple of years, moved back to New York, moved back to Atlanta, and now I'm out here in LA right now.
Nice. At what point in your life did you so because you were on a sitcom, right? It was a
Well,
sitcom when
no, it was more so a current event teen talk show. So we
okay.
would have weekly guests. It would air every Saturday at 1 p.m. on BET, and it was like a talk show. So you'd have your main host that would have guests come on, and then directly adjacent to the host, you would have six teens up on stage, so you could get our POV of the topics at hand. So whether it be
Oh,
from
okay.
uh, depression or suicide or just current events that were happening back then. It's pretty popular, man, and I'm grateful for the experience because I've formed some friendships that I still have to this day. So it was a great experience for me. Also being on a project while I was studying, like my middle school all the way up until college, I've had the same major, which was communications or mass communications with focus in radio and TV broadcast. And so while being a communication major in high school and also having those two jobs, it was a blessing. I'm still grateful for those experiences.
So did you ever think from there, did you ever think to yourself like, "Oh, maybe I want to be an actor?"
Acting is, but back then it was my first love. I went to acting school in New York. Um, I took theater classes in high school, minored in theater in college. But yeah, acting was always my first love. Even my freshman year in college, I had an assistant role in radio with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Alfred Woodard and Ed Harris, and then
Oh,
some TV
nice.
shows as background talent on some TV shows. And so to come out here, LA, I never really saw it being real,
Mhm.
but as photography picked up, I was like, you know what? I've kind of played my hand in Atlanta. Let's see what Los Angeles has to offer. So
Yeah.
I took a leap of faith. And when you have people that you know that went out there and chased a dream, it makes it that much more attainable. Where you're like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it. So when you have people, I've had frat brothers, Pooja Kalu, who's a celebrity wardrobe stylist who came out here chasing a dream, and like I said, Tone, who came out here, had to struggle, but and I remember visiting him when he first moved out here, and humble beginnings, and now he's I mean, the rest is history. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was just chasing the dream, man. But yeah, acting has always been my number one thing I wanted to do.
So then how did you get into photography?
So I've always had a camera in my hand. A lot of that has to do with my mother. I've been familiar with shooting on disposable cameras and getting those rolls of film processed. I was always the guy in high school on track meets that had the video camera, creating raw content just as far as like comical, kind of like hits from the streets. That was also popular back then on BT. But when I got to college, again, Savannah, Georgia is a historical city, beautiful in its aesthetics. I started using that as a backdrop for the models, quote unquote, my friends on campus that I would shoot.
Hmm.
And I became known as the photographer on campus, the go-to. So upon my senior year, people were like, yo, there's an internship at Vibe Magazine. You should take it. And I was like, all right, well, if I did that, it would be for a semester, and it's in New York, it's in Manhattan. And I was like, yo, how cool would that be to go back home for about 6 months? And I did that. I interned at Vibe Magazine in the photo department for 6 months. And that literally um, had such a major influence as far as being introduced to editorial photography, and I fell in love. And yeah, so after that, that was my chase, editorial photography. And but the whole shift was, and again, I'm grateful for Clubhouse because I was able to tell Jamie Foxx this like a week and a half ago on Clubhouse. But Jamie Foxx was somebody who I modeled my whole chase after,
Yeah.
meaning uh, he was talented in multiple things. His main love was music. He tried to go into music. It didn't really pop like he wanted it to. So then he ended up in the whole acting and comedic space. He became known for that. And then once all eyes were on him, he decided to say, hey, just to let you guys know, I also do music.
Yeah.
And then he gets Grammys and Oscar awards and all that. So I decided to say, instead of being the jack of all trades and the master of none, let me just focus on one thing. And at that time, photography was making me a little bit more changed than acting was because I was in
Okay.
Savannah, Georgia. Not many things were being filmed there. So I said, you know what? Let me really focus on photography. And that's the direction I decided to go. And so for the past 15, 16 years, it was mainly photography. And then with the network that I started to build and the people I started to meet, I realized that I've started befriending a lot of people that were in front of the camera, but also in the industry as far as directors and producers, writers, etc. And I was like, yo, this is the perfect time. If I'm shooting these people, I could make this pivot to motion photos, which is directing.
Yeah.
And if I want to, I can create my own project where I'm able to star in it. And that's what kind of really prompted me a couple of years ago to start writing a short film, and I was
That you're
able
in,
to,
right?
yeah, I was able to co-write that with a friend from high school, Bethel Dixon, and yeah, so I co-wrote it, I directed, I produced it, and I starred in it, and as of last year,
Nice.
was able to get some film festival accolades, including Best Actor. So
No
I think
shit,
that was
really?
and it was a
Oh,
full
that's
circle.
awesome.
Yeah, I got two Best Actor awards from two different film festivals, so that was a full
What?
circle.
Congratulations, man.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, that makes me super happy.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
I remember when I think you posted something on your Instagram, and I believe it was the artwork. I'm assuming it was the poster.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
And
Yeah,
then I
yep.
remember I reached out to you and I was like, whoa, what's going on with this? And then you told me a bit about it, and I was like, whoa, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So that's awesome that it went from that to, you getting awards for it. Cause I mean, I think that's something something we all want to achieve when you start something. Not necessarily you're doing it for the awards, but once it's out and you put it out there, it's nice to be recognized, right?
Correct. Yeah. And it's one of those things too where I did it not to get accolades at all, but it was more so um, a kind of a proof of concept that you can uh, go out and do something. Like I'm really big on just the follow through as far as the dream is concerned. It's like if you have the dream, all right, everybody can have a dream, but it's not real until there's a plan to attain it. So my whole thing was like, all right, let's make this happen. If I want to become a director, what's the fastest way to do that? And again, I'm always thinking of the fastest way, not saying I'm looking for the shortcut, but I'm
Yeah.
also realizing that time isn't on our side. We're getting older,
Yeah.
youth fades and all this stuff. So I'm like, while I still have this freedom, I don't have any children right now, and I can move more freely. I'm like, yo, the time is now to kind of get this ball rolling, and I'm not getting any younger. So the whole thing was to create this project, and from that, I told you I wanted to kind of make that shift into directing, and because of the film that I was able to work on with my co-producer Bethel Dixon, she just submitted um, our previous project for a film fellowship that's going on this year, and we just got a grant to produce our second film. So the beauty in
What?
that is the first film was crowdfunded, based off of my network, my family, my friends, and all my supporters. We were able to raise about $12,000 to produce the 19-minute short film Crossroads. And now we've been given a grant double that amount to create a 10-minute short in New York City. So the cool thing about that is, again, the stipulation for this grant is that this upcoming film has to be filmed in New York City, which is my hometown. And my previous co-producer and co-writer tapped me on the shoulder, was like, hey, I would love for you to direct this. So again, speaking things into
Nice.
fruition and all about manifestation, I said I wanted to direct more, and here we are. I'm able to get my second film funded completely, and I'm grateful for this journey, man. I really
Yo,
am.
that's awesome. To go back really quick, how did you talk to Jamie Foxx?
So if the viewers aren't privy to this, there's a app on there's an app out. It's called Clubhouse, and it's an audio based app. Uh, the only visuals you see are just the photos of everyone's icon, but it's
Yeah.
it's essentially a platform where you can go and just have open dialogue with people from all over the world. And a lot of how it initially started out was a very serious networking platform where business deals were being made, partnerships were being made, friendships were being made, even love connections I've heard since it started. But there was a room where Jamie Foxx came on to talk about his impact on the industry and his role in the recent animated film that he's in, and they opened the floor up for questions.
Yeah.
And I tapped on the raise your hand symbol, and once I had an opportunity to talk to him, I wanted to give him his flowers, because I'm definitely not one to kind of be thirsty.
Hmm.
But it was one of those things. I'm like, you know what? It's one of those, because if an opportunity presents itself and it seems like I'm gonna have to be like, oh, excuse me. I'm like, this ain't the time. I'm not trying to do all of that. So
Yeah.
if it's meant to be, it'll happen. And I knew the moderators on stage. So I was like, let me just hop up here and just say my piece, because it was one of those. I wanted to give him his flowers, because it was Clubhouse where a lot of my following may have been privy to my work, and they may say, James, we love what you do in the industry, and we want to know how you started. And I realized that every time I would tell my story, Jamie Foxx's name would always be in it, just like a few minutes ago in this discussion.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I'm always mentioning this man's name, and I kind of followed his blueprint as far as focus on that one thing. Once you have everyone's attention, then kind of show your hand and let them know all that you can do.
Yeah.
So I just wanted him to know that, and yeah, we had a cool exchange, and I'll be grateful for that. I actually recorded it. You're not
Did you?
supposed to record. I didn't screen recorded it, but I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recorded it on my iPad just for memories.
Yeah, of course. That's really cool.
Yeah, man. So it was cool. It was cool.
One of my friends, Rachel, she told me about Clubhouse,
Mhm,
and I don't really know. I think I've only been on there like once or twice,
mhm.
and she keeps encouraging me like, "Yo, you got to get on there. You got to get on there." And I'm like, "Yeah." It's my fault. I really don't know what I'm doing, but
Yeah,
it's one of those things where I guess I should get out of my comfort zone and just try it. Because I mean, I'm doing this, which is definitely out of my comfort zone, but I'm doing it, so
and when
I figure
you're
why
on
not?
Clubhouse, like the appeal to Clubhouse is that it feels like an interactive podcast. A lot of these podcasts, they're pre-recorded, and once they go up, you listen to it, and that's it.
Yeah,
But here you have these rooms of all types of categories and topics, and people are talking about everything from A to Z. So it's like if you walk into a room and it's a topic that you're interested in, you can. I've literally made some really cool connections with people that I'm looking forward to meet. I have some people in Tokyo now that I'm looking forward to meet based off of Clubhouse. Some
nice.
people in London that I'm looking forward to meet once outside opens back up. So if you go in there with the intent not for it to be um, a time drainer, but more so as a networking tool, it can definitely be that.
Okay.
So yeah, I would implore you. It's like because essentially what you're doing right now is what you would be doing on Clubhouse just without the camera in your face.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a room I'm joining later. Me and Allie are going to join. Our friend Rachel, she has she started a traveling chat room.
Yeah,
So she just said, "Hey, can you guys hop on?" So we're going to try it out. So I was like, "Yeah, you know what? Let me try it. Let's see what happens."
do it, do it.
Getting back to taking pictures, photography,
Hmm.
is there is it fair to say you have a certain style of taking photographs?
If I were to say that, if I were to respond, I think in my interpretation, I'll say this: the most consistent commentary that I've gotten on my work is, "Oh man, it's so clean, it's so vibrant, um, it's so crispy." So over the years, literally, the probably the most used adjective when referring to my work has been "it's so clean." Um,
Okay.
then at first I would take, I'm like, "Oh man, that's dope, thanks." But then somewhere along the line, I started feeling a little resentful. I'm like, does clean mean like safe? I'm like,
Yeah.
does it mean not good enough? Does it mean not moody? Does it mean not gritty? Because it's kind of like when you have straight hair, you want curly hair. When you have curly hair, you want straight hair. When you're light,
Yeah.
you want to be dark, and vice versa. So when I kept getting the adjective clean, I'm like, well, shit, I want to be gritty. I want to be moody. I want to be all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, but I appreciate it because, hey, if clean and alluring and vibrant is what I am, it's kept me booked and busy. So it is what it is.
Some of my favorite pictures that you take that I love is when you take a photo. For example, I'm going to use a vet. When you took the pictures of a vet, it was just a white. It was what I think it was a white wall.
Yeah, it actually was a white wall, I believe, and it was the wall of the lot, the
Yeah, the
studio that
sound
we
stage,
were
right?
that we were filming, the soundstage. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'll let you continue.
No, 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 that's okay. And it's the photo of her, and then I believe it was to the left. If you look at it, it was you're drawing her in. So it looks like pencil sketching, and then it's all of a sudden it's her. Like it's her in color. The first time I saw that, I went, "What the fuck is this?" And then I remember you were working on the photos while she was shooting, and we were on the floor, in that little room. I
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
peeked over, and I was like, "Oh, is that some of your?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, just a little thing I'm working on." And I was like, "Hey man, that's really nice." And then I started looking at your Instagram, and I started looking at it, and I was like, How? I mean, I'm not that smart, and that was blowing my mind. I was like, holy shit. I kept showing everybody. I was like, dude, look at, like, I don't even know how he does it. And I was watching him do it.
Yeah, man, it's you're referring to something that I started a couple of years ago called hashtag James Shoots and Draws. And essentially it's self-explanatory. I'm James Anthony. I shoot and I draw.
Yeah.
And James Shoots and Draws is the merger of both my photography and my illustration skill. Um, Drawing was probably the first thing that I ever started doing as a young kid in New York. Even before acting, I had an interest in sketch and creating comic books. And my tattoos I've drawn on my back, and so it's always been something a part of me, and it was somewhere along the line where social media came out and we're showing, okay, yeah, I'm a photographer, but it in the whole, the thing I was mentioned earlier, jack of all trades, it was like, yeah, photography is cool, but there's other stuff I'm interested in, and I didn't feel like I had to stay in this box of only being a photographer. So I wanted to have a little more fun with my images and put sketches on top of them, and the rest is history, man. Like, James Shoots and Draws has so many reposts, over 1 million impressions on social media. So I'm just grateful for all of the networks and all the people I've been able to meet and work with because of it. Like, mind blown. I've had some of the biggest gigs in my career come from people finding me from James Shoots and Draws. So
Really?
it, yes, to me, it's just a testament on, like, yo, if you feel something in your gut that you want to produce, do it, and just share it, because you never know where it can take you.
Yeah. I've never, I mean, I'm not the authority of, oh, I know everything about photography. Definitely not. But I've never seen something like that before. So when I saw it, it definitely grabbed my attention. And I thought to myself, wow, this is really unique and um, creative, and man, the pictures you showed me and the pictures that I went through, I mean, I think it was the first time we met and you were like, oh yeah, I got an Instagram. I came back and I remember going through just photo after photo on Instagram. And I was like, Allie, I was telling Allie, I was like, baby, look at this one. Baby, look at this one. And then I think maybe by the 20th or 30th photo, she's like, are you just going to show me all of his pictures? I'm like, yeah, but because
Right.
this is fucking amazing, and then getting back to to your photos looking clean, I definitely would agree with that. When you're taking photos of people and the colors that pop out, I would definitely describe that as clean, because I mean, I would also describe it as vibrant. When I see your photos, I don't feel like the color is taken away from the subject, it's enhancing it. And even that is amazing, because I mean, I can see, I've seen other photographers and they take a picture and it looks nice, but then when I look at yours, I'm like, wow, like you just tie everything together. Just the way you do it is I mean, it's amazing and it's great and I love it. And I think because you're my friend, I'm even more excited and I talk you up even more. I think that has something to do with it also.
Oh yeah. Look, no bias. No, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate that. I really do. And I say that because majority of uh, me being able to sustain myself has come from support, support from friends, support from people that don't even know me, and like you said, people that may come across my page and like, hey, look at this. So I am, like, truly appreciative of everyone that bookmarks and shares my work, because it it's a again, it's a reminder. It serves as a reminder where it's like, yo, if you create from the heart and consistently, uh again, the two things, persistence and consistency, I feel like are the two key things for me that have made the biggest difference. Just being consistent with the work that I put out, but being persistent in a sense of, even in those times when things seem slow, it's just like, yo, even if I'm not booked by someone, I'll make sure that I'm booking myself creatively, where I'm out here creating more passion projects that, stays on people's radar. So I always try to stay cognizant of that.
Yeah. When you're taking your photos, do you have a certain idea going into a shoot, or is it like a mix? Is it, "This is what I want," and then as you're there taking photos, you go, "You know what? Let me try this." That you didn't necessarily go into the project, looking for something. Does that make sense?
I think it's always a mixture of both. Before any photo shoot, I always like to have some type of outline of what the overall goal is, and I think true artistry is always the inspiration that you can draw from whatever scenario presents itself. Because there's plenty of times where you may outline something or plan it, and it may not go as planned. But
Yeah.
how you can pivot in that moment, that is, I always tell people, entrepreneurship, not even dealing with photography alone, but entrepreneurship, the art of it weighs heavily on how you are able to problem solve. So I feel like even in moments of like, oh man, the sun didn't, shine like it said it was going to, or this parking lot that we were going to shoot in, ironically or randomly, there was a filming here that we didn't know about, so now we can't shoot here. It's like, all right, well, how can we pivot and make this work? And I always feel like I'm good at keeping my composure and making sure that everything stays in line. But yeah, I always just try to have an outline, whether it be a mood board, concept board, and once we get to the location, that's when those spur of the moment um, inspirations can kind of lead you elsewhere. But the goal is always to execute what the ultimate vision was.
Okay. Do you always carry a camera with you?
You know, I don't say always, but every time I get on the plane, I always have my camera.
Okay.
And there was a period of time, like after college, like during college, and like when I was first getting into photography, I would always have my camera with me, always. But then it got to a point where I'm like, I'm tired of taking photos, and I would leave. I mean, I would leave it, because also when you start showing up to places, oh, James is here, take a picture. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But now, like if I'm going out for the day, I may not bring my camera. It all depends on where I'm going. But anytime I get on a plane, I always bring my camera with me. I try to bring my whole Pelican case that has all my equipment. But if I'm not booked on a shoot, I won't bring the whole Pelican case. But if I'm traveling on a plane, I'll always bring my camera, because I've actually had situations where I may fly East Coast, I may fly to DC, and while I'm out there, someone's like, "Hey, I see you on the East Coast. You think you can fly to New York for a shoot?" I'm like, "Yep, I sure
Yeah.
can." So and then I've been on I've had opportunities to be on flight passes and stuff like that. So there may be a time where I fly to New York and I'm out there for a little longer than expected. And hey, I want to go to Italy. So I'll go to Italy, and I got my camera with me. And yeah, so I'll try to keep it on me when I'm going on long trips.
Okay.
But if it's
When
just
you're
somewhere for the day, like that's local, I'll keep it home
Yeah. When you're out and about, are you constantly looking at
always.
you know exactly what I'm about to ask you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even know
Are
how
you
it's
always
going
looking
in.
are you always looking at the world through, "Hey, that would be a nice picture. Hey, that would be."
Anybody that specializes or focuses in a particular field, they can all attest to them having a heightened sense of awareness of whatever that field is. So it's like, if you're an audio engineer, when you hear movies or hear albums, you hear it differently than someone that isn't in your field. When you're a dancer, you're going to look at music videos differently. You're going to be focusing on different things. If you're a director, you're going to be watching films, movies, and videos differently. And when
Yeah.
you're a photographer, it's the same. Or like if you're a chef, you're going to be judging a lot more critically than the average consumer would. But being a photographer, I kind of correlated to kind of like a gift and a curse. It's almost like you have a sixth sense that you can't let go of. So it's like every time I may go on to CVS for lotion,
Yeah.
and I walk past I walk in CVS and I may be stopped in my tracks based off of the billboard or the banner that's up in the makeup aisle because the image may be striking. And I'll walk up to the image of the woman with her eyes open and I'll get real close and look in her eyes to see the catch light so I
Oh
can
wow.
decipher how they lit this subject to get like this. Because the ultimate goal is, as a photographer, none of us want to be a starving artist. So it's like, all right, well, if I can get a Revlon campaign or a L'Oreal campaign, I would have to shoot similarly to these ads in order to get their attention. So
Yeah.
never fails. Every time I walk into a drugstore or a Target, Target especially, Target probably is on my radar to it's on my list to pitch to kind of shoot one of their campaigns. But yeah, it kind of stops me in my track. I may look with a uh just a real critical eye of how it was retouched, what type of lighting was used, how many lights were used, and all of that. So
Yo, that's
very,
crazy.
I'm always looking at things a lot more critically.
I mean, obviously for somebody who's not a photographer, I would never think about that. I just look at the
Yeah,
picture and go, "Oh, that's a nice picture." And
yeah,
that's as far as it goes.
yeah,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah. It's yeah, it's crazy.
Getting into some technical side, the kind of camera you use, is it is it critical the kind of camera you're using? Like let's say you're taking landscape as opposed to or like if you're outside taking pictures of nature as opposed to shooting a person, does it really matter much in the camera or is it more in the settings?
It's more in the person behind the lens. It's more on what you can do. Like I shot my first wedding on a Sony Cyber Shot, which is smaller than a cell phone.
Oh wow.
Probably just as it was probably a little smaller and a little maybe about this width, this thickness, but about this size.
Okay.
And again, this was pre. This might have been '05, 2005 or so, but all that to say is it's never the equipment because you have photographers that have one of my homies I just saw on Instagram some of his work as a photographer is up on billboards right now just for using his iPhone. You know,
What?
you people that make a living off of shooting high fashion editorials on disposable cameras. So I don't ever feel like it's the equipment; it's always the eye of the person behind the
Wow.
equipment. Now,
Okay.
that all that is based off of who your client is as well. Because say your client is, BMW, and you have to shoot a car campaign. There's obviously some restrictions that um, a disposable camera, the final product, won't give you based off of a higher end maybe full format camera. So the equipment is more important then. But as far as execution and just imagery, you don't need a specific camera um, to create amazing imagery. The specifications may just come based off of the client, saying, all right, well, we need it to be in this resolution and we need it
Yeah.
to have this lighting and all of that. So, yeah, as long as you have the desire to learn and the artistic eye and maybe the technical know-how, you can create some dope work on the crappiest camera.
So can you take an average camera and then in post, right? Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, in
Like after you
post,
take it,
hmm
like
and what
like in post, would you be able to like? Is that where you fix everything? Like where you like color correct things? Like oh, I want this or that
Well,
in it.
anytime you shoot anything, you can pretty much color correct. That's pretty much the operation on how photography works, where it's like, all right, well, you shoot whatever. You may do minor adjustments in post, but the goal is always to get it right in camera, like before you even take out the memory card or take the film or process the film, is to
Yeah.
get it right in camera because it makes the post in that much easier. But yeah, there's certain things you can't do depending on what you're shooting with. Like if you're shooting a low res JPEG image, there's going to be certain things you're not able to do as if you had a raw image that's a lot larger and contains a lot more information, just for the simple fact that it's a lower grade of image. So there's certain things you can do and certain things you can't do.
Okay. Do you take do you only take digital photos or do you also do film?
I started with film, but currently I only shoot digital. Not that I'm opposed to shooting film. I love to kind of get back into that, but currently just shooting film
You're
keeps it
currently
easy.
shooting film or you're currently
I
shooting
mean,
digital?
well, yeah, currently
I was like,
shooting
"Wait a
just yeah. He's
minute."
like you said two different things. Nah, currently shooting digital only. It just keeps things easier,
Yeah,
and I have a lot more freedom as far as how many frames I take,
yeah.
especially when it comes to James shoots and draws when they're animated.
'Cause when you're shooting film, it gives you a different look, right?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, I'm some of these questions might sound dumb, just I don't know much about shooting other than like I think I told you I used to work at Disneyland as a photographer.
Oh
Did I
wow, I
ever tell
didn't
you
know
that?
that. Nah,
So I worked there and um
wait, is that when they call you a cast member?
yeah, yeah, yeah. When I got the job, they had told me or they had asked me in the interview like, "Oh, do you know anything about, film, shooting pictures?" And I was like, I really don't know." They said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll teach you." So they taught me how to frame a photo, but I never messed with the settings. Like the settings were already put into the camera or already adjusted because they want a uniform look. So they're not necessarily looking for anything that you are.
Right.
Um, it's just more of, hey, capture the
They pretty much
subject.
they need a human tripod.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
So
frame it like this. The settings already there. Just shoot.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's all I know about shooting. So I mean, I can frame things up. I know to, you know, not necessarily show the feet, cut off at the knees. If you're getting a tight shot, something like what how I look in the picture right now. I mean, I know basic things like that, but when it comes to like, what is it like iOS? Is that a thing?
iOS is as
Or
far
is
as
that the phone?
yeah. I'm like as far as Mac, Apple.
What is
No,
it
but
called?
you can have an operating system. But you mean EOS, Canon?
EOS. There
There
we
you go.
go. Yeah.
There you go. He's like, it's one
There's
of those.
and then is it different? Like is like what's the difference between a Nikon and a Canon? Or is it just mostly the name?
Um, Sometimes it can be color profile, how each camera may process the color. Like once the image is captured, it can
Yeah.
be color profile, it can be resolution, but ultimately, it's like Nike, Reebok, and Adidas. They're all shoes. They all serve the same purpose, and you can run a mile in all of them.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on your preference and your style. But they can all get the job done.
Okay. So let me ask you, do you have a certain project that you worked on that you thought like is it fair to say do you have a favorite project you've worked on? Even most recently.
I think one of the 2020 was probably the best year of my career, just for the opportunities that fell my way. But shooting Usher for his Vegas residency of 2021 was a highlight. But I think one of my most memorable experiences was probably working with Regina King for
I
the
was just
Emmys.
gonna say that.
Yeah, working for Regina King with the Emmys because for one, it was a multitude of things that made it stand out for me, and one of those being um, it was a reminder saying, "Yo, because years ago I decided to bet on myself, which means decided to leave corporate America because I was unhappy. I was like, I'd rather chase my dream and be unhappy until I am happy rather than be unhappy working for someone else and not knowing when the end would be. So I'm like, there's more promise in me betting on myself than there is in me going into working at this call center I was working at back then. And So I just kept reminding myself, like, yo, it's because I made the decision to post my James shoots and draws on social media, where Wayman and Micah, her wardrobe team, reached out to me and said, "Hey, James, we want to shoot Regina King for the Emmys, and we wanted to do something creative, and we thought of you." And I think that's what I was affected by the most, where more so recently when people say, "Hey, we wanted to do something creative and you're the first person we thought about." And I'm like, yo, that was the whole purpose for me, showing that I was more than just a photographer.
Yeah.
um, and me betting on myself kind of created all these opportunities to come my way. So forever grateful for that. But even aside from that being a memorable experience in that regard, as far as me putting myself out there, but one, I mean, two, it was Regina King. She's, a legend as
Yeah.
far as her skill. I've been watching her my whole life, and I've always resonated with her too, just because her Regina King and my mother are around the same age. So I've always felt a connection to Regina. And even in her latter projects, within the last 6 years, I've always been impressed by her skill set as a thespian. It's just so impressive. And a multi hyphenate individual as well. She directs. She's a voice actress. She's an actress. So I just felt a relation, a connection to her in that regard. And then lastly was, that's probably the most stressed out I've ever been on a project, just
Really?
because when people say, "Oh man, I was up for 3 days straight," executing that Regina King project before the Red Carpet Emmys, I literally stayed up for 3 days nonstop. And I'm not even saying, oh, I'm not even exaggerating, like 3 days and then I had a 2 hour nap.
Yeah.
Literally stayed up for 3 days
No
until I
shit.
got that
Really?
project. So by the end, I'm sending it off. They're like, "All right, we're it airs tonight." I'm like, "All right, here's the final. Here you go, take this one." By the end of
Yeah.
that project, man, I was so fatigued and mentally tired. I just wanted to cry. Like, that's how tired I was. It wasn't,
Damn.
my feelings weren't hurt, but I just wanted to cry because I didn't know what else to feel, because I was so exhausted. But then grateful at the same time. And I always joke, like, I'm always grateful for the projects when they come, but because of the pressure that it rises or raises it, I'm always like, I can't wait till this is over. I can't wait till this is over. So I'm super excited once I get it, but then once I'm in the thick of it, I'm like, man, I can't wait till it's over. And then
Yeah.
once it's over, you kind of, you don't necessarily forget about the pain you were in, but everything seems all blurry. Just kind of like when women give birth, they're like, "Oh my God, this is the worst pain. I'll never have another kid." And then a week later, they're like, "Oh my God, I love this little baby. I'll have another
Yeah.
one."
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that, where it's a labor of love, and you really gotta. I get excited to get in the ring with myself a lot, just because a lot of times I put the fire under my own butt to be able to execute bigger and better than I previously have. So there were many parts of that Regina King Emmys red carpet experience that just stood out for me within a out of my whole career. So I'll be grateful for that for many years to come.
So is it one of those things where you enjoy it more when it's done after you're done with it, or is so much going on that you don't necessarily enjoy it when it's happening?
I always try to take a moment to silently like really appreciate the moment as it's happening, but then that's quickly overwhelmed by the the angst of, like, all right, well, you have a deadline now, so like, let's get to work. Put all those feelings
Yeah.
of gratitude and excitement to the side. Let's get to work. So it really allows me to focus. And then toward the end, it's like, whew, I did it. And of course, just like anything, once you get the reaction from the masses, I think that's when it's like, okay, I did my best. And when you find out that it's well received, that's just the icing on the cake. So
Yeah. Dude, I remember I saw that. I saw I saw you do something on your Instagram. And I was like, "Wait, is that Regina King?" And then I ended up seeing like a, what would you call it, like a featurette? A
on
segment?
Yeah, segment on you might have seen it on Red
Yes, that's
Carpet.
exactly where I saw it. And I
Again,
saw you and I went, "Wait, what?" And I mean, anytime I see a friend especially a friend. And it's not necessarily, oh, I see a friend on TV. It's, I see a friend succeeding in the field that they're a professional in. And that makes me even happier.
Yeah.
Again, it's not like, oh, look, they're on TV. Yeah, whatever. But it's, holy shit, look what they're doing. I was over the moon about it. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe. And then, a couple days after, I saw more stuff on your Instagram and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. Like, dude, just so if I can pay you a compliment, I don't think I've ever told you. I have a couple friends in my life who are very hardworking.
Mhm.
And you're one of those friends where I see you, I'm not with you day in and day out,
Yeah.
but the times I've seen you working, and even when you're not working, just in talking to you, you're very uplifting, motivating, and fucking hardworking, man. And when I started this podcast, when I was thinking about it, I thought, who do I want to model myself after?
Mhm.
And you're one of those people who I thought, I want to be like, I want to be like James.
Hmm.
Because I mean, so far, just the way you talk, not on camera, but off camera as well, is so motivating. And you're like, hey, if you're not gonna do it yourself, who is? You
Yeah.
have to do it. And fuck, man, like I'm trying to I'm trying to be more like you, especially now that I'm doing this. And I want to thank you for being such a influential person, even though you may not have known. So,
I
but I wanted to tell you, just that's something that I wanted to share with you.
you know, I appreciate that, man. I really do. Um, it's it's a weird thing to hear sometimes. I'm always grateful, but you know what it is the entrepreneurship, the entrepreneur journey for me and many people have has been really difficult. Well, I'll speak from my account. It was always difficult because it was like go to high school, get go to college, get a degree, get a good job. That was always the order of operation. But when you do everything you're supposed to do, and then you graduate in the middle of a recession and realize that there aren't any jobs in the major in the field that you studied, and you're like, I did everything I was supposed to do. Like, how is there not a job for me? Um, it made me definitely feel lesser than and kind of like, did I waste my time because I can't get a job in what I spent all this money on? So chasing a dream, a lot of people don't always understand your desire to do it, and they may not even understand like how seriously you see it. But it's kind of like going against the grain, where it's always like, yo, get the job, get the stability, have a life, and live happily ever after. But when you're doing something that no one previously has really said, be your own boss and do these things on your own accord, and chase your dream even if it's not definite. The journey found I found myself in two serious bouts of depression during that whole journey, over within those 15, 16 years, where it was just like, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I just stop now? But then it was always like, but you've invested too much of your time to kind of let go and to leave it all on the table. But there were serious times where I'm like, am I doing enough? I'm being kicked out of my apartment. I can't pay these bills. Sally Mae is calling me, but I was willing to sacrifice all of that because I always saw the bigger picture. And many people aren't mentally in the headspace to say, I'm willing to risk it all to bet on myself because I see the bigger picture at the end of the road. So it's like I always saw the bigger picture, meaning like I could be my own boss, but I never knew how I was going to get there. And I never knew what that journey was going to look like.
Yeah.
But I would rather have been homeless and um, dodging these bill collectors, all while chasing the dream. If I would have known for certain, it would have gotten me to this point right now. So those moments were extremely dark, where it's just like I would be an embarrassment to everyone if I don't succeed. So I'd rather, your mind just goes in these dark places. So
Yeah.
again, I say all that to say, when you can have a friend that can tell you something like that, what you just told me, and I've had some other friends in New York. I had one friend in New York say, like, bro, I don't think you understand how influential you've been in my career. But it's always those comments that at the drop of a dime, I can weep. I can weep because what it does is it takes me back to the incredibly dark times that I've been, where I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
where I didn't know how this was gonna all end, and I was just like, man, this is I should just give up. So if I'm able to inspire other people and kind of be something to someone else that I didn't necessarily have, then I'm always grateful for that. But again, it always gets me right here. Even when you said, I was like, man, if you only knew. So I almost feel obligated because I don't want anyone to kind of feel how I was feeling during those times. And I don't ever want anyone to kind of be like, man, can I do it? It's just like, yeah, anybody can do it as long as you create the blueprint. Because everyone has dreams. Oh, I dream of this, I dream of that. And I was just telling my wife the other day, I said, a scary feeling. And when I say scary, it's in quotation. Scary probably meaning more, it's an empowering feeling, but knowing that anything that I have said that I wanted to do, I have done as far as up until this point. So now when I say I want to create and produce an Oscar winning animated short film, that's on my agenda before I turn 45. And I'm in the process of producing a scripted series for a streaming service. That's on my agenda to do before I turn 45. So it just goes like, once one goal is attained, then new ones spark. But the ones that are on my plate that I know are going to take more time to kind of really like harvest, I know those are the special ones. Those are the ones that are going to hit people for years to come. So if people watch Crossroads and that story resonates with them, I'm grateful because it was my story. So if people see my journey from photographer to director to actor and writer and producer, I'm grateful because this is my journey. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just got to find a gumption within yourself to say, this is going to be a journey and this is a
Yeah.
marathon, not a sprint. So that's one thing that has kept me through. So I appreciate that, bro.
Well, so far, what I know about you is I know you have not only the will, but you have the talent to get yourself to those achievements that you want to achieve. And I hope nothing but the best for you, man. And
Appreciate it.
sometimes every one of your little successes, it makes me feel good because I'm like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's not just somebody who's being successful. That's one of my friends being successful. And I hope that, I mean, I feel like I can be more vocal about it with you. Um, and not, sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I should shoot him off a text. And I'm like, maybe not, because maybe I'm bothering him. But maybe I should put that aside and try to let you know a little more. Because like I said, you've definitely impacted my life. And I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And
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 also
there's
when you were
easy
talking, I got a little glossy eyed too.
yeah, man, I'm telling you, it's great. And you know what it is? It's there are I'll be the first to admit I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person.
Same.
So my church, when people can say, "Oh, I went to church and I wept," for me, I can listen to a motivational speaker talking about overcoming your fears and pushing through, and I can weep from that because that's my testimony. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what I've lived. So when I hear Steve Harvey talk, Chris Rock talk, I mean Kevin Hart, Tiffany Haddish, Oprah, uh Tyler Perry, when I hear these people tell their stories, it always hits me here because I feel like, yo, I was at a point where I was crashing on my fraternity brothers, my LB's couch for a year, and all of that stemmed from me losing my apartment because I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 because I'm like, I got to chase my dream. So yeah, man, it's a full circle moment of having those memories and even sitting here talking to you right now. So kudos to you on starting this because you've always been easy to talk to, even when I first met you. So I'm interested to see who else you bring on here and how this will grow for you.
S- So I started the podcast as a soccer and comedy podcast, right?
Mm.
And then when I was talking to Allie about having you on, I thought to myself, well, he's a photographer. He's not a soccer player. He's not a comedian. But then I thought, why not have you on? It's my fucking podcast. I can talk to whoever, whenever I want. Yeah, I'm going to do it. And it's
Yeah,
mostly not only do I want the audience to get to know me more, in getting to know me, it's getting to know you. You're a part of my life. You're a part of, how I'm going forward in this business of my podcast. So I thought to myself, why not have you on? Because there's nobody telling me no other than myself. And I sure as hell is, and I'm not going to tell myself no. So
that sign back there,
yeah,
the only person who can stop you is yourself.
I like that.
That's it, man. That's the only person who can stop you. And when you're your own boss, even the no's, they're not really no's. They're just maybe not right now, or
Yeah.
maybe not right now while this person is the boss. But once that boss leaves, somebody else will be like, "Oh my God, I love you. Come on board." So
Yeah.
yeah, no one can stop you but yourself.
If we can end with a little lightheartedness, I wanted to bring this up. I wanted to share a story about how when Tone was on
You know where you're going.
when Tone was on Fam
Yeah.
show sitcom, we would I'd always wait for you to go to craft services. So just so everybody knows, um, when we would go to the taping, we would sit on what they call the floor. So we have our own little room with other invited guests, and we could see the show being taped. We see, there's two TVs. There's one TV with the 4 cameras, so we see what the cameras see, and then we see what potentially would be the finished product.
Yeah.
So when they're cutting two back and forth, you just see it like a regular TV. So we're in this room, and then if you walk out into the left, behind all the, behind the set, you have craft services, and they have everything. And during the taping, um, they'll switch food out. So sometimes they'll have whatever it is, pizza, desserts, any and everything you can think of. So what I really liked was I'd wait for you to show up because I'd usually get there a little early,
Yeah.
and I'd wait for you to show up, and then I'd go,
You
craft
ready?
services,
Yeah, let's
you
do this.
ready?
Yeah.
And we'd go over and we'd start eating. And it was, a little this, hey, try this, try this. And because your wife is a chef, I would always tell you, hey, I want you to try it and tell me what you taste, what
Right.
you
Right.
think of things. That was one of my favorite things to do.
That was one of my highlights of first moving here. I'm like, to move here and then you have this because based on you coming from the East Coast, but then to you kind of come out here and have a built-in um tribe, so I'd be able to see you guys weekly. But then again, the most popular room in any house is the kitchen. So
Oh
if
yeah.
we're showing up on set and then we get to walk over to the craft service area and have good food, and then even after the show, go to Tone's dressing room and drink or whatever, it was just one of those things that I would look forward to. Again, like you said, you on one hand, I'm looking over seeing my homie winning, succeeding at something that he's dream chasing, and he's succeeding right now. But and then on the other hand, you got good food. Then on this hand, you got good people that you're able to network with, and but then also build with. Uh, and there's this thing on my stories that I do every once in a while I call Fat Boy Chronicles. And Fat Boy Chronicles is something that
I
I
remember
would
you
always
would say that.
post, yeah, because craft services has like all these crazy ass desserts, and anybody that knows me is that there's like this little fat, obese, diabetic man inside, and
Same,
I'm
same here.
shoving sweets down my mouth, and yeah. So, and little side story, I in that weird transition, like when I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do after the pandemic, the recession when I graduated college, there was this time period where I also know how to make cakes, like fondant that make look like things. So I used to sell cakes and cheesecakes and pies.
What?
And I had to stop after that because I was also a personal trainer at the time, but I realized I started gaining weight because when you carve these cakes to look like things, I would find myself sitting in front of a TV eating cake, like crumbled up cake excess and just
Yeah,
icing, just milk, just watching TV. And I would think it was okay because I was working out every day,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
was like, I need to chill out with the cakes.
yeah.
But yeah, so my sweet tooth is crazy. That was definitely one of my highlights. I can't wait till somebody else is on some network show and
Right. I think
test.
I told Tone a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, hey man, you need to get on the show, mostly so we can go to craft services. Like, what the fuck, man?
Right, right. Yeah. I'm sorry I got canceled again, but next time you get one, please let me know.
Dude, I remember there was a couple times where I would bring, like, I'd go to craft services. I'd come back and I'd go, hey, have you tried this? And you're like, no, I didn't. Where's that? Then I'd give you one because I usually get two. And then you'd be like, hey, did you try this? I'm like, no, here, try one. That was
Yeah.
fun. And then there was at least one time you didn't show up to the taping. And I was like, what the fuck? I even text you. I was like, hey, man, how can you leave me hanging? I'm supposed to eat all
Yo,
this food by myself?
yo, I remember that text. I said, I can't make it. You were like, bro, I thought you were showing up. I was like, damn. Yeah.
Dude, the whole night, even Adrian, even Adrian goes, I'm sitting back there and I'm eating. And she goes, hey, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. She's like, your friend didn't show up tonight? I'm like, no.
Yo,
Cause
and the fun,
because because nobody else appreciated the craft services like we did. I mean, yeah,
and
I tell Adrian, oh, did you try this? I tell Rojo, hey, yeah, they were fine, but there was no excitement. There was no like nothing behind it. I was like, oh, all
like
right.
real, like genuine excitement. It's funny because when I first started going, I think that first time I knew craft services was there, but I was like, I'm not gonna be the guy that everybody's like, can't invite James anymore. Like he won't put the plate down. So I was always going like that first trip, I was like, it's all right. But then having somebody like you there, I'm like, oh well shit, like let's just do this. Let's
Well,
go have fun.
I remember the first time we were there, or at least the first time you showed up, I was like, hey, come here. And you were like, oh. And then you told me, like, you were like, oh, I'm a little nervous. I'm like, listen, I was already nervous at a vet's
Yeah.
show. I was like, I'm a pro now because over there, I was there for what, end of season or like half of season one, the tail end, and then
Mhm.
season 2 and 3. So I was like, look, I've already done it. I know they're just gonna throw it away, so we might
Take
as well eat it.
Yep.
So I was like, no,
Yep.
no, no,
Yep.
come here, let's go,
And
come on.
with that sentiment, you're just helping out. Who likes to waste food? So it's like if I can help you not waste food, let me be the one to help.
Exactly.
That's all. That's it.
Hey man, we're gonna sign off, but stay on. I have a couple things to tell you off camera. Um,
Cool.
Thanks again for being on. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. And yeah, man, I can't wait to see you again after all this pandemic stuff calms down.
You gotta let me know when it airs and all that good stuff. And
I will.
yeah.
I will for sure. All right, man. Thanks a lot.
All right, you guys have a good one. Peace.
All right. Hey, everybody. That was my interview with my friend, James Anthony. Please make sure to go follow him on Instagram and check out his photos. It's at I am James Anthony. Like I said, plenty of fantastic photos. And I believe he has a link tree. You can find him on Twitter and all his other platforms that he's on. So thank you for listening. Thank you for coming back. Remember, tell everybody. That's right. Tell your who? Mom. That's right. And your dad. And your brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles and even your doggy if he has a telefono. This week, some more original music by me. This time I'm going to bring in an instrument because I'm good like that. This bad boy was given to me by my good friend Jacob. He lives here in the apartment complex. And he was like, hey, you want a guitar? And I went, yeah, because I know how to play it. And he goes, yeah, I know. You have that look about you. So this week's music is going to be some riffs on the guitar. So I hope you enjoy it. And I'll see you next week. Here we go. Ready? Thank you for listening to the fucking show. Thank you for listening to the Jesus Show, not that one. Tight.